One thing I've never tried to do, and I think none of us can do in public office, is suggest that because somebody doesn't agree with me, that they're victims or they're unpatriotic.
The problem is that the way Bush has done it over the last 8 years is to take out a credit card from the Bank of China so that we now have over $9 trillion of debt. That's irresponsible. It's unpatriotic.
But I know that what you often hear out of Washington can sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, a jumble of unfocused noise that's out of touch with the things you care about. So today, I want to cut through that noise and talk plainly about what we should do right now to keep growing this economy and creating new jobs. It begins by ending what has done more than anything else to undermine our economy over the past few years, and that's the constant cycle of manufactured crises and self-inflicted wounds. I was glad to hear the Republican leader in the Senate say this week that they won't pursue another government shutdown or threaten another default on our debt, because we shouldn't be injuring ourselves every few months. We should be investing in ourselves. And one way to do that is through the budget that Congress started working on this week.
See the leader, the Democratic leader here, and why don't I yield back my time and let the Democratic leader take time off the bill. Take the time.
Democratic leader?
I'll use leader time.
Without objection.
I place economy among the first and most important government virtues, and public debt as the greatest of the dangers to be feared. President Thomas Jefferson. Mr. President, today the Senate is considering a bill to increase the nation's debt by $781 billion. If adopted, it would be the fourth such increase in 5 years this administration has been in office. I will be opposing this latest request, and I hope that people on both sides of the aisle will do the same. Any objective analysis of our country's fiscal history would have to conclude this administration and this rubber-stamping Republican Congress are the most fiscally irresponsible in the history of our country. In fact, when it comes to deficits, this president owns all the records. The three largest deficits in our nation's history have all occurred under this administration's watch. The deterioration of the federal government's finances is the direct result of the misguided priorities of this administration and this rubber-stamping Republican Congress. These deficits have resulted in an unprecedented and dangerous borrowing spree. Total debt during this spree has grown by trillions of dollars. The legislation on the floor today will push the nation's borrowing limit to nearly $9 trillion. Compounding matters, the President's most recent budget, much of which Senate Republicans have placed before the Senate this week, would make matters substantially worse, leading to $12 trillion debt by 2011, just as the first wave of baby boomers is beginning to retire. Given the explosion of debt in recent years, it's long past time for Washington to change the course and adopt a new fiscal policy. After all, the future of our economy and our nation is at stake. The Comptroller General of the United States, David Walker, told the Senate Budget Committee recently, and I quote, "Continuing on this unsustainable fiscal path will gradually erode, if not suddenly damage our economy, our standard of living, and ultimately our national security." If my Republican friends believe that increasing our debt by almost $800 billion today and more than $3 trillion over the last 5 years is the right thing to do, they should be upfront about it. They should explain why they think that more debt is good for our economy. How can the Republican majority in this Congress explain to their constituents that trillions of dollars of new debt is good for our economy? How can they explain that they think it's fair to force our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren to finance this debt through higher taxes? That's what it'll have to be. Why is it right to increase our nation's dependence on foreign creditors? They should explain this. Maybe they can convince the public they're right. I doubt it. Because most Americans know that increasing debt is the last thing we should be doing. After all, I repeat, the baby boomers are about to retire. Again, on debt, Thomas Jefferson. These are his words. "And to preserve our independence, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. We must make our election between economy and liberty, or profusion and servitude." President Thomas Jefferson. Mr. President, we're being asked to do what shouldn't be asked of us, to increase the debt to almost $9 trillion. I hope everyone walking down to these desks today will understand what they're doing to our country. On this side of the aisle, we know. Thank you, Madam President.